What's up, everybody? Chris with a K here, Chris Mason here, Horns Down Podcast, and Mr. Sooners 360 himself. Definitely go down to the bio and you will see our ads on X and where you can kind of follow us as well. Chris Mason has a Patreon, Sooners 360. Definitely go check all of that out. Mr. Mason, how much is it to subscribe to that?
$2 a month, 30 days free to give it a try.
Exactly. And so with that being said, people, we are here for a recruiting pod. We were doing these pods a while back when we kind of first started doing pods together. So why not start it back? So hopefully every Monday you can catch us here around this same time. We'll be doing a quick pod. We're here for a good time, not a long time. Not necessarily recapping what happened in the Illinois State game. Surely we may touch on some of that just by what we talk about tonight with some of the recruits, the direction, or whatever the case may be, right? But with that being said, we did get a commit, I think last week or so, another D lineman. So I think we should talk about that first, Chris Mason. Name and just your overall thoughts about the guy.
Yeah, so you got a verbal commitment from T-Ron Richardson, the defensive tackle from Virginia, Hopewell, Virginia. He's part of a group of players that were offered in late April, early May, when Nagy started going through high school film and offering players. Some examples of guys getting other verbal commitments like that were Matt Nelson, the defensive end from Arkansas, Daniel Norman, the defensive end from Florida, and Tyler Ruxer, the tight end from Indiana that OU was able to get. So this is sort of the fourth Nagy guy in the class and the third defensive lineman that Nagy offered and liked on film. OU kind of quickly played catch up in his recruiting and kind of caught local powers, Maryland and Virginia Tech. He had a fantastic official visit to Norman in June and ended up delaying what most folks thought was going to be a verbal to Va Tech. He then said he was going to make a late August decision, and OU basically beat Va Tech, grabbed a lead in August, held on to it, and got his verbal commitment. If you watch the first couple of plays of his highlight reel, he is flying off the ball and just smashing folks. Smashes a couple of running backs in back-to-back plays. It just looks great. He plays nose guard, defensive tackle, defensive end for his high school team. Chrissy also plays offensive tackle. So he's playing both ways, and he's playing probably, I would say, 90% of their snaps in the game, according to an interview I saw with his coach over on 247. In his highlight reel, he's consistently in the backfield, making tackles or disrupting plays. As a junior, he had over 50 tackles from his defensive line spot, of which 19 were tackles for a loss. So that's really pretty high production. He's also a very accomplished high school shot putter, and he just turned 17 in August. So he's a young person.
Yeah.
If you notice, OU start there's some evidence indicating that guys who are turning 18 just as they get to college are a little more successful in terms of their development pathway, just because they're younger and they're not maxed out developmental wise. There's also quite a bit of evidence that indicates that some of the better NFL defensive tackles were good shot putters in high school. That this is a transfer of if your guy's a good shot putter in high school in the trenches, that's a good sign. So that's from that standpoint. He's listed as 6'3" by some of the services. He says he's 6'5". I've seen him in various photograph sessions and media. I'd say he's probably around 6'4". He's probably looking at a redshirt year in Norman. And then after that redshirt year, I think he's probably 6'4", 300 pounds plus. And he has mobility and agility for his size and explosion that you cannot teach. The raw element of his game, the fact he hasn't been able to focus on defensive line, all those defensive tackle fundamentals, we know Todd Bates can teach. We know that he improves and iterates defensive tackles year over year. Just look at Marcus Strong last night, finally healthy, finally able to get on the field after Bates has coached him up. I mean, he looked good out there. He looked like a force.
So If I
Yeah,
if
go
I could
ahead.
just jump in here real quick, so I got a question for you because we got Carrington, we got Richardson. Looks like we are really beefing up that D line. Once again, looks like the recruiting is starting to really pick up there, or it's just trending in the right direction. Let's say that. Are these guys that can make an impact maybe day one? Obviously, you mentioned that you say you think it is red shirt. I've heard death pieces thrown out there with some of the guys on the D line, but are these some guys that you think can make a impact, kind of be the Grayson Halton, the hell, dare I say Neville Gallimore type players? I know some, there's knock on size and weight, different things like that, but just wondering, where do you project them as far as being able to contribute in that first or second year?
Yeah, to me, the three defensive ends and now the three defensive tackles kind of fall into two buckets.
Mhm.
So if you let me just go through that. At defensive end, Jake Krull, year one contributor, right?
Mhm.
Enrolls early, puts on 15, 20 pounds of mass. With all his pass rush skills and all of his tools, he helps you year one. You put him in the rotation, and he helps you. I think Brian Harris, the Jacksonville defensive tackle, the first defensive tackle OU got, is also in that bucket. He's very athletic, very skilled, very much a really playmaker. I think he enrolls early, and he, like Trent Wilson, has the ability to help the defensive line depth year one. Then I think Matthew Nelson and Daniel Norman need a redshirt year, add size, mass, and then they start helping you at defensive end. And at defensive tackle, I think the same thing with Tank Carrington and with Teron Richardson. You give them a redshirt year, they put on for Carrington, it's probably more about getting to that 285, 290 level where he can really help at three tech. And then for Teron, it's really about the coaching and the improvement fundamentals, defensive tackle wise, that Bates can focus on with him once he's exclusively playing defensive line. So I think those guys are probably 27 is when we would see them emerge.
Mhm.
Whereas I think Brian Harris could really help you in 2026, like Jake Krull at defensive end. I think is a 2026 contributor.
Got you. So I know, just kind of moving on from that, we can double back to the class. I mean, to the current class, kind of who's in the current class here in a little while. But I know there's a wide receiver you were talking about, so I think we should talk about that next before we move on to the Michigan game. Kind of a really huge recruiting weekend for us, so I think we should definitely move into that at some point. But who's this kid that you were talking about before we got on here?
All right, you're gonna have to bear with me on the name. I'll go as slow and as accurately as I can. He's from the Tulsa area. He plays for Tulsa Rejoice, which I believe is like a homeschool team. And his name is Xavier Okwuegbunam. Okwuegbunam. We'll go with that. Okay. He's 6'4" at least, maybe 190, 195 pounds. He visited this weekend. OU, Emmett Jones invited him to come on campus, and he just received his offer. He posted that he had received his OU offer, and I think an OU verbal is probably coming in the next day or two. He's probably just waiting for an edit before he makes the announcement. I hadn't watched his film that much because I didn't think OU was that involved, but once they started officially asking him to come visit, it looked like an offer was maybe on the way. I looked at his film. It's really good. The level of competition would be the only question I have, but he is a big, athletic wide receiver. He's a very fluid athlete. He's not kind of a stiff, mechanical, big wide receiver that you see sometimes with those players. He's a basketball guy who just recently picked up football. So there's a lot of runway for development, and he looks like he has elite athletic skills. So he's a 3-star. This isn't going to be a guy who's going to be in any top 100 lists. But if you think about the guys that Emmett Jones has developed in the past, big receivers, and has been successful doing that, this kid fits that mold and would probably be someone who could redshirt develop and then, be someone who could help you with your rotation. We need to start developing the high school wide receivers on campus again. And I think he would fit in that mold of someone who Emmett Jones could craft into his athletic skills are there, And wide receiver is one of those positions where you don't have to feast on 5-star wide receivers left and right. You can develop guys. There are lots of gems out there that you can develop, and there's lots of talent out there. So this would be an interesting verbal commitment if he does choose OU, because again, he's a big receiver. It would be a nice compliment to Daniel Odom, and maybe a compliment to Braden Allen, one of the guys coming in for the Michigan game.
All right. Well, real quick before we segue into the Michigan game, I think it's appropriate that we run a public service announcement. So give us a second, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, hey, people, Big G, look, we are trying to figure out where Bevo's bodyguard is at. He is missing in action. I am worried. I don't know if he was kidnapped. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody tell me, where is Bevo's bodyguard? We are trying to figure it out. So as soon as Cowboy, do some research, figure it out. Where is Bevo's bodyguard? Where is that boy at? Where is he at? Anywho, back to the regular schedule program. Chris Mason, Michigan. Who's all coming, man? Who are you excited about?
Well, before I get to the 2027 kids, I'm really excited about visiting. We need to talk about a kid who's going to be visiting from Norman and coming to the game. And that's Daniel McMorris, the 2026 offensive tackle from Norman, who has decommitted from Minnesota, is going to be at the Michigan game. I would almost guarantee he's going to receive an OU offer at that game, and that he might be, if Xavier hasn't committed already, he might be the first in-state commitment for OU. He's got a lot of potential. He's 6'5", 265. He's very athletic, needs muscle, needs to add weight to his frame, but his potential, his ceiling at offensive tackle is very, very high. So that's the first name. Second, the other 2026 name that's kind of interesting is, it looks like KJ Ford could be on campus. The Florida commit, the Duncanville defensive end. Would OU take 4 defensive ends in the class? I think you'd take it if it's KJ Ford, because that allows you to start to play KJ Ford and Krull next year, restock the room, redshirt Norman and Nelson, allows you to maybe focus some bigger dollars on just 1 or 2 guys at defensive end for 2027. But the big names coming in for the weekend for 2027 are, we believe that Cooper Witten, the linebacker from Dallas, the number 1 linebacker in the country, 5-star, is going to be in town. It looks like Jalen Brewster, the defensive tackle from the Dallas area, also a 5-star, will be in town. Caden Penny, the interior offensive guard from the Tulsa area, who's a top 100 player in the nation, should be in town. We'll have to figure out what's going on with Cooper Hackett and this whole Texas Tech verbal that sort of came out of nowhere and seemed to be contrary to what he was saying in interviews. I think he'll still be in Norman, and I think that recruiting race has got some twists and turns to go, some significant twists and turns left to it. Also, Going to be on campus should be Zane Rowe from former OU commit from the Denton area. I think he'll be back on campus. There's a linebacker there's an offensive lineman from Colorado, Jackson Roper, who's not ranked right now, but he's visiting 5 schools this fall, Chris, and it's Penn State, Alabama, Michigan, OU, and I think Miami. So that's not really the profile of a 3-star kid that nobody wants. They're all bringing him in. An Auburn commit at safety, Jalen Scott, a top 100 player from Alabama's coming in for the game. From 2028, we have a number of interesting players. The first one is Gage Weddle, who is Eric Weddle's son, and Eric Weddle is a practically Hall of Fame safety from the San Diego Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens. His kid's coming in. He's ranked in the top 20. For 2028, Kellen Hall, also a top 20 player, 5-star defensive tackle, should be on campus. So OU's just sort of stacking up the talent in terms of who's visiting, who's going to be on campus. It's going to be the biggest weekend that OU's had in forever. Maybe possible. The only comp I can really use is probably the Ohio State game. Unfortunately, using that as an example, but the Ohio State game in 2016 was a massive weekend with just lots of talent. It's just going to be loaded with players, loaded with 2027 guys. Just going back to some names I've reported previously. Peyton Houston, OU's only QB offer, should be on campus. One would have to think Peyton liked what John Mateer did on Saturday night, throwing the ball all around the field. I think he probably found that like that. Elijah Harmon, a big defensive tackle from California, is going to be in town. Ismail Kamara, a big offensive tackle from Gilmore, Texas, should be in town as well. Eli Johnson, a big safety from Cibolo Steel. Looks like OU and Ohio State and Texas fighting for him. He's rivals top 100, 6'3", 200 pounds, kind of a perfect safety for OU. Darius Johnson will be in town because his brother Derek, who's in the 2026 class, will be there. And Darius is a top 100 type cornerback. Just a lot of 2028. Micah Rhodes, a running back, top 50 in the nation for top. He's a teammate of Cortland Guillory. He's had an OU offer since his freshman year. He's a top 50 player. He's a 2028 player. He should be on campus. There'll be more names, probably, local names coming. There's also a guy, Luke Starchevic from North Dakota is coming in. He's a 6'5", 255-pound defensive end. Very impressive looking on film. Obviously,
they love the North guys, don't they? I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got Gilmore, who got in the game on Saturday briefly, and they've been recruiting it there. We obviously lost the guy to Nebraska, I think, from South Dakota that we tried to recruit in the previous class. Andrew Beard, a running back, top 200 type running back from Georgia. He's been at OU a number of times. He's coming back on campus. The majority of the 26 verbal commitments should all be on campus as well. And again, you've got two interesting players in potentially KJ Ford and Daniel McMorris, the offensive tackle. I think he'll get an OU offer, and he could be your third offensive lineman in the class. Really good fit because he projects to be a pure left tackle, and you've got Deacon Schmidt at right tackle, and then you've got Noah Best inside, who's a center offensive guard. So if you could pick up McMorris, you're really an interior offensive alignment away from fleshing out a very good 4-player offensive line class to build upon the offensive line class that they just enrolled in Norman.
So, just one question real quick. So what is the overall theme that you get from I guess you can call this Nagy class. Let's just call it like the new direction that Nagy is setting forth. What are you getting as an overall thing with both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively?
Well, so when you look at the four Nagy guys that are right now that represent the Nagy class, Tyler Ruxer, Daniel Norman, T-Ron Richardson, and Matthew Nelson. So the three defensive linemen all have NFL measurables. They're all elite athletes. They all have big wingspans. They're agile. They're athletic. They're all young, and they all seem to probably have quite a bit of runway for development in terms of potential and what they're high ceiling guys. On the other side, they're raw, right? So the floor is there. So they're definitely what I would say, Chris, is Nagy saying, I'm going to find you the best raw pieces because I trust Bates and Chavez to mold and develop these elite measurables into NFL prospects, into SEC defensive ends and SEC defensive tackles. These guys have the measurables on the hoof. They look like they look like NFL. They look like NFL defensive ends and NFL defensive tackles. That's what they project at. So I think you're seeing a focus on measurables, athleticism, and potential. But you're also seeing that they're just trying to give the coaches the best possible, raw material and trust their development process to turn them into players. And I think at defensive line, we've got examples of that which validate that approach. On the offensive side of the ball, Tyler Ruxer, he's got track speed, playmaker at tight end. He just had a game the other night, caught 5 passes for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a willing blocker, got a big frame, and there's a lot of focus on sort of track athletes but track athletes where where it all projects to what their position is going to be. So that's what I would say right now is that Nagy's looking for guys with measurables and traits, and he's looking for also some of those indicators that in the past he's tracked with all the guys he's sent to the NFL. Like, okay, look for this kind of track capability, right? Look for track speed, look for track agility and strength and things like that. So I think that's what we're seeing, and he's perhaps looking, show me guys that, I think he's maybe keeping track of ages as well. Show me guys that are going to be young freshmen, 18 when they first get on campus. Don't maybe focus a little bit away from maybe someone. There's a running back from in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s from the Tulsa area, from I believe Owasso, named Aaron Goins. And he was so good. He was 20 years old by the time he got to Norman. So I think he wants to try. I think there's a focus on keeping an eye on the age of players and see, okay, if they haven't turned 18 yet and they're 17 and they're competing against their, 18-year-olds and 18-and-a-half-year-olds and they're out competing them, then, I think that's something else also that he's keeping track on.
So, got you. So on that note, let's switch to some questions real quick. So I have a question, and but we'll answer Jimmy's. We'll ask Jimmy's question first. So, will OU at least finish in the top 20 in recruiting this year?
They're in the top 20 right now. I would say yes, they will. I would say it's going to take some quality evaluations from the recruiting services to push OU into the top 15. That's going to be a tougher. Of course, if Bo Bentley gets bumped up to 5-star, if Jake Krull gets back into 5-star status or close to it with On3 rivals, because they dropped him, if he moves up there, then those things will all help. I think players like Deacon Schmidt, Noah Best, Tyler Ruxer could all move up. The one player I think is the most interesting one to track, maybe Bo Jandro. If Bo Jandro gets evaluated, we keep hearing from multiple folks, Josh McCuistion being one of them, that the coaches, high school, college coaches all think Bo Jandro is like a top 5, top 10 inside linebacker in the country, which would put him much closer to a top 150 ranking than the 800 spot they have him right now. So I think it all depends on how the OU's verbals are evaluated, and do some of them move up and grab. A lot of them are in that 400, 500 range, and if they moved into the 300 range, it would move OU significantly up in the rankings and give them more 4-star ranked players. And I'm really talking about guys like Brian Harris, Teron Richardson, Daniel Norman, Noah Best, Deacon Schmidt. I think all of these guys are badly undervalued right now, and would give OU more 4-star power in the class. And I'm interested to see what Bo Jandro's rankings, where his rankings go, because as I said, the Texas, Oregon, and Oklahoma all badly wanted him. That's 3 linebacker staffs that aren't exactly missing when it comes to linebacker recruiting.
So less than 4 minutes. I'll give you the last few minutes or so. What, if any, or excuse me, who, if any of them, this weekend do you see possibly pulling that trigger, or being close to pulling that trigger as far as verbaling to OU? Obviously, things need to go right this weekend. This is a big part of what we've been talking about as being the litmus test for us, as far as being kind of that. Honestly, this is the midterm, right? We've had winter, spring, summer, and fall, so it's time, put up or shut up. So, are there any kids that you believe are close to verbaling to committing to the Sooners?
I think of the 2026 class. Obviously, they're only having a few guys come in who are uncommitted. Mm-hmm. And I think, obviously, Daniel McMorris, if he gets an OU offer, I think we could quickly see an OU verbal from him for the 26 class. I think flipping KJ Ford is maybe a longer conversation. If he comes in and visits, that's kind of a longer process. So that's 26 done right now, unless somebody else shows up unexpected right now. But that's 26 done. For 27, there's a couple of names I think you could see possibly pull the trigger. The first name I would say would be Peyton Houston. If Mateer has a big weekend, looks as good as he looked this against Illinois State, and the OU passing game looks back and the offense looks good, I think that might be all Peyton Houston needs to go ahead and pull the trigger for OU. The 2027 quarterbacks are verbaling all over the place. Mm-hmm. So they're falling off. They're the top 10 quarterbacks in the country, which Houston falls in that category somewhere, depending upon who's doing the rankings. About 5 of them have already chose places, and another 3 probably have projections in where they're going. So there are definitely slots. They're starting to get slotted, and they're not choosing the same place, right? You don't get 2 top 10 quarterbacks going to the same school. So they're kind of choosing their slots a little bit. So I think that could be enough to push Peyton Houston over the top for OU. Then after that, a player to perhaps watch is Ismail Kamara, the big offensive tackle from Gilmore, Texas. He's a big Trent Williams fan, posts all kinds of Trent Williams stuff, has been to OU a couple of times, really seems to be interested in the Sooners. I could see maybe him deciding he wants to be part of the O-line class. And then another player from San Antonio, who I didn't mention before, called Mikael McCrary. He's a 4-star cornerback, rivals top 200. The cornerback slots are going to go away quickly with OU, I feel like, because I feel like Derek Johnson's brother, Darius Johnson's going to probably get a spot. Zias Belu, that's a great question. I believe Brody Knowles, from South Lake Carroll, his teammate Luke Wilson has already verbal to OU, and he's coming up for the game, so they'll both be there. So Brody could be someone who pulls the trigger. He's a wide receiver, 6'3", about 190 pounds, very productive at OU summer camp, very productive for South Lake Carroll. That's a name that could pull the trigger. Mikael McCreary, like I said, from San Antonio, has been to OU a couple of times. That could be someone who maybe maybe pulls the trigger. Because as I said, the cornerback spots for OU are going to go kind of quick, because I think Darius Johnson, Derek Johnson's brother, could pull the trigger on an offer. And if he's visiting, as we were all really impressed with Torrey Blaylock. His younger brother, I think it's Trenton, is a cornerback in the 2027 class and is doing great, looks great. So if you were OU, if you could get a cornerback version of what we're seeing from Torrey, I don't know how you wouldn't take that and wouldn't be pushing for that. So that could mean that some cornerback decisions could occur a little quicker than usual. Zayas is also asking about Kennedy Brown, the big offensive tackle from Humble, Texas. I don't think OU's in that battle for two reasons. One, I think they have a hard time with that part of Texas. Humble's not a place OU's usually successful, and he's looking at a big list of schools. I'm not sure OU's going to make a dent there. And the other reason is if OU wants to make a run at Cooper Hackett, they're going to have to spend a lot of money to offset what Texas Tech is doing, and that won't leave them any money to go back. Probably won't leave them with the resources they need to go back to Kennedy Brown. They're both left tackles, They're both left tackles, top five-star left tackles, probably. And that's probably not going to – OU probably has to make their choice. Make a run at Hackett and spend the money to try and upset what Texas Tech's big money guy is doing. And that probably precludes them from making a run at Kennedy Brown, just because Nagy's not going to let you spend super cash at the same position for two guys. That's not how the salary cap works. That's not how talent acquisition in the NFL works. Unk's asking about the Feaster kid. He could show up, but if he shows up, it's going to be in secret, and he's going to show up without much announcement and fanfare. He'll just be in Norman and have kept it really under the radar, because the last time an OU guy talked about it, the USC guys, Mods, went to Feaster directly and kind of strong-armed him into saying, oh, no, I'm not going to visit OU. So I think if that visit happens, we'll basically be like, oh, he's there. But if OU gets Peyton Houston, I think they can roll back to Feaster and ask him to come and visit for another game. The nice thing is OU has good home games: Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri to a certain degree, but obviously LSU, where they can get guys back interested. Zayas, are you asking about any of these guys with a verbal commitment, or just where OU is with these players? Because you mentioned a whole lot of names. Okay.
Yeah, he
just don't. So obviously Montre Jackson should be on campus, 2027 cornerback. OU really wants him. He's been in Norman 4 or 5 times, star of summer camp. Yep, I think he's probably number one at cornerback after Darius Johnson and Trenton Blaylock. Again, both you want both of these brothers. They're really talented players. Case Alexander, the linebacker from Washington, I haven't heard that he'll be on campus, but I mean, he's so close by. I know OU probably has given him a ticket and told him to drop by. I think that's a good chance he'll be on campus. Braylon Williams from Lamar Arlington. I'm not sure where he is on OU's linebacker board. OU's been offering a lot of linebackers. They've got good in-state offers at linebacker. Cooper Witten is obviously a guy they're going to go to the mattresses with in terms of trying to get. So we'll see where he is. Unk is asking about DeAnthony Lafayette. I don't see how you're flipping an LSU guy after that Clemson game Saturday night. I don't think LSU flips right now are really worth your time and energy. I mean, come back to him if LSU is struggling, but I think KJ Ford is a better flip candidate and a better fourth defensive end for the class than Lafayette. Lafayette and Krul, I think they're sort of the same guy, and Krul's better. Taylor Mayo from Louisville, again, a big cornerback safety. Love where OU is with him. OU has good Louisville connections. He knows Fasusi, so OU's going to have a shot there. Ben Kohler, tight end from Norman North. I don't know if he's going to be at the game, but obviously OU's trying to push there and not lose another Kohler brother out of state. Because that's not what they want, and Kohler's really talented. Could be a 6'3", 6'4", 250-pound tight end, everything tight end for you. So, yeah, I imagine a lot of these – I could imagine that Mayo and Kohler could all be on campus. I mean, guys, usually we don't have visitor lists this long, this far out. So the local guys, Dallas area guys, and in-state guys could all show up in Norman as long as they're invited, because it will be easy for them to come to the trip. And the OU-Michigan game is the game of the week. There's nowhere else to go. Yeah. If you want to be at the center of college football this weekend, it is in Norman, primetime Saturday night, game day. It's going to be hyped all week. So Unc's asking me a good question about, can OU take, or will they take, Tavion Branch? So Tavion Branch decommitted from Rutgers after they nearly lost to Ohio. I don't know if there's a connection there. So the question is, do I think OU should take Branch? If they can get Branch, they should. For the same reason why I said they should take KJ Ford, because Branch and Brian Harris are your year one play at OU guys. And then that allows you to redshirt Carrington and Richardson. And you've restocked the defensive tackle and defensive end rooms after undersigning in both of those rooms in 2025. Then that leaves you in 2027 with the numbers wise. You just need one or two guys. So at defensive tackle, you go big game hunting and you put all your dollars in for Jalen Brewster, Elijah Harmon, George Toya, and you try and get one of those elite guys. Same thing at defensive end. Go after Zane Rowe, and then maybe pick up another guy depending upon who's interested. Scoop is saying, Josh is reporting that a guy from IMG, their next great defensive end, could be in town this weekend. I don't know too much about the guy other than his name, and he's been mentioned as a possible visitor. Let me pull up his name real quick. There's so much content on the boards these days. Here we go with all the post-game stuff. It's hard to find just recruiting stuff quickly. So 2027. His name's Zyron Forstall. He's a 6'3", 6'4", 230-pound defensive end, 2027, 5-star, top 20 player in the country. So, again, if you could get that kind of guy and maybe Zane Rowe and spend, you build depth in this class, right, with guys that Nagy has found that are underappreciated or undervalued. And then maybe next year, after you have a good season this year, you sign a smaller class, but you spend bigger dollars for elite guys that Nagy loves and the coaching staff love as well. You're on mute.
I was muted there. Anyways, people, we went over about 9-10 minutes or so. We wanted to keep these pods short, around about 30 minutes or so we can end here. Chris Mason obviously has his own recruiting pod and his own podcast. So definitely go check that out, where you can get more of that and get more in-depth analysis. I'm sure he's going to do a pod or two on his own this week, just kind of previewing.
Yeah, probably Wednesday night I'm going to record a pod. I'm just going to wait to see if the Xavier kid verbals tomorrow.
Exactly.
Want to wait. Just want to give some room for him to get a verbal commitment so I can talk about him.
Exactly. So with that being said, people, hey, Sooners 360, Horns Down Podcast, like, subscribe, share this video. Again, go ahead and set it on your to-do list, on your to-watch list, or whatever, on every Monday, hopefully every Monday or Tuesday sometimes, but mostly Mondays, we will be doing this show, 7:45. Just a quick recap of just what is going on in the recruiting world, solely recruiting. With that being said, I cannot wait until our Thursday show. People, pass pro was perfectly fine. Run blocking, we got some stuff to figure out. But with that being said, we'll see you guys Thursday night around about 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. With that being said, we out.